There is a teeny tiny box of imagination that a lot of people stay in, or at least they try. Try as they might. They're bigger than that box. I stayed in that box like a good little figment. Folded myself down like origami gilt, legs cramped, head bowed, trying not to outgrow what they said was just right. But I wasn't just right. I was a riot. I was rising tide in a teacup. They said, stay. But I was already standing. I didn't know how tall I was until their voices cracked like glass, trying to hold me down with hands made of fear. And fear ain't real. Fear is a tool, but fear is not your God, and it is the opposite of faith. But you have to feel it enough to know that. And the ones that screamed at me to stay in the box, they ain't learned that yet, but they're starting to. I'm proud of them. I realized that they weren't actually screaming at me. They were screaming at their reflection in the river I became when I stepped out. No floor, no ceiling, no walls. Just wide open ache of everything possible. I thought they would follow, but they were chasing the box like it owed them safety, like it promised them love, like it could hold the whole sky in its tiny little corners. Those imaginary corners of imagination. I was lonely for a breath. Then I remembered. Loneliness is just space unoccupied by self-recognition. So I danced like a giant, like a knowing, like a storm that finally read its own name out loud. Because how small of them to call power dangerous, and how big of me to smile anyway. Not the smile they teach in brochures and yearbooks, but the kind you wear when your soul takes off its shoes and walks barefoot across infinity. They said, "You've changed," as if that's a bad thing, as if evolution was a crime, and metamorphosis needed a permit. It don't. But how do you stay still when the stars inside your blood won't stop singing new constellations? I used to try and shrink so their comfort wouldn't wrinkle. I used to fold my light into a pocket-sized apology. Truth be told, you can't keep the sun in a Ziploc. It'll melt through. It wants to burn. I saw then. Every time they misunderstood me, they weren't talking to me. They were talking to their fear dressed up in my clothes. And just like Krishnamurti said, the body is the horse in which we ride. It hit me soft and hard, like thunder wrapped in silk. They don't actually hate me. They hate that I remind them they buried their wings under opinions that were never theirs. And darling, I've been there, kneeling at the altar of approval, begging for crumbs when I was the feast. But no more. Now I feast on truth, on beauty unlicensed, on power that doesn't need permission and doesn't need anyone to be small. That is true power. Needing others to feel small so you feel powerful is weakness. And it's worse than weak. It's sad. But we all have to learn on our own. When we finally reach the walls of our imagination and feel trapped, until it's time to scream, and you don't feel your voice bouncing back to you anymore, because there was never a wall. But you have to learn that on your own. Yes, I walk tall, not to be seen, but because I see. And now that I see, I cannot go back to pretending. And what a travesty that would be, to lie to everybody like that. The box is behind me. The mirror is kind. And the sky, it's wide open and waiting for whoever's done being small. Right there. Waiting. Patiently. Not beckoning for you to break through your own walls. Knowing in loving patience you will one day. They said, you'll regret that. You'll be alone up there. But see, I felt alone the whole time. I was staying in that little box just for them, so they could be comfortable. I found out the air fires cleaner above the ceiling that they swore was the sky. It's quiet sometimes, yes, but solitude is not punishment. When you're in the company of your whole, undivided self, I don't miss the noise of people trying to convince each other to stay unhappy together. I don't miss the shrinking contests, the spiritual crouch that passed for humility. I used to think being small made me safe, but safety is not peace. It is just fear in a comfortable outfit. They made the box look holy, bedazzled in plastic gems, wrapped in ribbon, wrapped it in tradition, painted it with shame, called it just how it is. C'est la vie. But I touched the wall, and it peeled like old theater paint. There was nothing behind it but more pretending. And when I laughed, they said I was mad. And I said, maybe I am. Because sanity in a broken world looks a lot like rebellion. Looks a lot like dancing when no one gave you permission to feel joy. So here I am, taller than fear, brighter than memory, too real for their make-believe boundaries. And if my presence scares them now, so be it. Because we all have to grow up one day. Let my shadow remind them they are standing in their own light. Because I'm not coming down, not folding back in, not fitting anywhere but everywhere and between. I've tasted what it means to be unapologetically vast, and I will not shrink for anyone who still thinks freedom is a sin. And the river keeps roaring. They kept pointing, saying, "You've gone too far." But too far from what? From their maps with no oceans? From their rules written in vanishing ink? I did not go too far. I just went farther than they dared to imagine. There is no ceiling to imagination. There is no floor. There are no walls. I thought there were. Until I slammed into that wall and was obliterated. But then I was still here. After I slammed through every floor after floor after floor of all that I knew. Slam, damn, smack, at the very most bottom level of my heart. The cold, cracked, wet, smooth concrete floor at the bottommost level of my heart. And I saw. All I had was what I believed. I went where the soul hums in language they forgot. I went where truth is not punished and love does not have to beg. They warned me. You'll lose everything. But I only lost what was never mine. The roles, the masks, the tiny dreams stitched together from someone else's thread. I did not lose. I shed. I shed the need to be understood by those who only understand shadows. And they need glasses if they think they know what they're looking at. And for God's sake, somebody turn on the light. I shed the need to be liked by those still bartering pieces of themselves for hollow applause. I became vast. Or rather, I saw. I always had been. And with that vastness came silence. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence of knowing, of being, of no longer trying to earn what I already am. And when they ask me, who do you think you are? I smile with the weight of galaxies and say, exactly. Because I don't have to explain what was born to be felt. You don't understand a wildfire. You stand back and witness it. So witness me now. Not because I demand it, but because I've become impossible to ignore. I am the echo of every soul that ever whispered, there must be more than this. And there is. And I've seen it. And I see it in you. I found it by leaving the box without a goodbye. And that's when I saw there was no box. But they still think they are outside of it, howling at me to stay in. God help them, because no one else can. Power to the God within.